And I'm curious, like with the rise of AI, are you see do you see certain mental models or ways of thinking that are just more powerful than others for people that are really looking to leverage this technology?
Oof. So there is the way of understanding things at the level of a black box, which is this is what I need to give this thing as an input. This is what it requires as an input.
Hmm.
These are the parameters that I set to it, and I don't care what it is doing inside, but this is what the output is.
Hmm.
Okay, and I'm going to use the output in whatever way that I want to. So
Right.
that's like the highest level of understanding. Or sorry, the lowest level of understanding, which is you understand thing as one big black box with what is the input and what is the output. The
Hmm.
secondary way of doing that is you take that black box and you try to peer inside, and it's an infinite descent of black boxes. Okay, it's like a
Hmm.
Russian Matryoshka doll, like like
Yeah.
doll inside a doll inside a doll.
Yeah.
But when you do that, like you start understanding things more fundamentally. You're like, okay, this is
Hmm.
what it is doing. Fine, let's take a look inside this black box and uncover the next black box, and then the next
Hmm.
black box, and then the next black box. So at every level that you're increasing your understanding a little bit.
Hmm.
So the second form of learning is a recursive like descent to infinity. Like you will never understand it completely because the universe does not want us to,
Yeah.
because things are chaotic. Chaos like we
Yeah.
cannot understand fully, but
Hmm.
we will always be increasing our understanding.
Hmm.
So one way of thinking about this is that artificial intelligence is kind of like a new raw material.
Hmm.
It didn't exist
Hmm.
before, but it exists now.
Hmm.
Not dissimilar to the internet. So when the internet first came, the internet was a new raw material, it's like a new channel of distribution that emerged.
Hmm.
We didn't know what we were going to do with it, but look at what we've done with it. Like I'm having this conversation
Right.
with you because of that, right?
Right.
So I do think that artificial intelligence has the potential for the same kind of impact,
Hmm.
but it, the right way to think about it is like it's a new form of raw material. Like you start figuring out how can you
Yeah.
use this raw material. Um,
Right.
so I guess like a difference could be um,
Yeah, that's
this just came to my
fascinating.
mind. So like
Really agree.
it's like when you first find sand. Sand is a new raw material,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
find it on the beach.
Hmm.
What are some uses of sand? You
Hmm.
can use it to make earthen pots that you
Hmm.
can fill things with. So that's one
Hmm.
form of using it, right?
Yeah.
If you take the sand and you try to sell sand, you will make some money, but not like a lot of money, right? Because
Hmm.
everybody has access to the sand. If you're doing
Hmm.
nothing with it and you're just selling sand, then you're just
Right.
you're capitalizing on the fact that there is sand in your backyard,
Right.
right?
Right.
But if you take that sand and you craft like earthen pots out of it, that
Hmm.
increases the value. Not
Right.
everybody is doing that, and now you're able to sell somebody things that they can like fill with water and drink out of. So that's a pretty cool use
Yeah.
case.
Hmm.
Let's take it even one step further. Sand is filled with silicon, right?
Hmm.
Silica.
Hmm.
Silica is the active component of all transistors.
Right.
So, like again, you've taken the same raw material, but you have utilized it to get electrons to move and get transistors to on and off. And now, like you're like making chips that like everybody is using. So that's one way of thinking of it. Okay, so this is a
Hmm.
new raw material. Let somebody else take care of creating the raw material, and
Hmm.
I'm going to figure out how to utilize this raw material to extract maximum value. Just
Hmm.
selling the raw material is not particularly helpful, which is what I
Right.
think a large, like a majority of the companies that have raised funding right now, that's what they're doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like if you
Hmm.
create a tool that is like, I will help you write an email better, I will help you write like an essay better, like that's just the raw
Right.
material. Like you're literally doing nothing with it. It's as it has come that you're
Hmm.
using it, right? Uh,
Right.
some may succeed with that, but like it's not like a sustainable strategy for everybody. Okay, so that's one.
Yeah. It's. Hmm.
The second thing is, okay, now that this raw material exists, do I want to participate in creating the raw material?
Hmm.
Okay, and that's a costlier proposition because making the raw material is much harder.
Hmm.
Um, but that's one way of thinking about it. Like, okay, like I will get into like the creation of the raw material. Another way of thinking about like what you could do, like model of thinking is, okay, everybody's going to use raw material, okay, this new raw material, and they're going to need like, if you go into the example of the earthen pots, you're going to need those wheels. Everybody's going to need those wheels to make
Hmm.
earthen pots out of.
Yeah.
So like, let me get into the business of making earthen pots. It's like
Hmm.
selling shovels, like
Hmm.
for people who are like digging.
Yeah.
So that's another way. So like, it's like create the infrastructure that allows
Hmm.
people to run these uh,
Yeah.
large language models, or which is the raw material that we're talking about.
Hmm.
So these are like the few ways that there's different ways of thinking about it, but to kind of give you like an overarching like way that I'm thinking about it, and I usually think history is the best predictor of the future, and um, in history things don't repeat, but they do rhyme. So finding other things that could potentially rhyme is like an interesting way of looking at things. So when the iPhone first came out and when it launched the App Store, um, lots of apps made money. Some of these apps were, like fart apps, like the ones that make some sound. There's a
Hmm.
few apps that literally you pay $999 just for the elite privilege of having a certain app. So
Yeah.
initially, like a lot of these apps were not particularly functional. Even the games were fairly like simplistic, but they all made money. Some of them even raised money. The reason was
Hmm.
because the iPhone was a completely new distribution channel. It's kind of like a new raw material,
Hmm.
analogously. And because a new raw material was discovered, because a new distribution channel was discovered, like anything you do, you will make some money because it's brand new.
Hmm. Right.
But over time, uh, these businesses didn't succeed. The
Hmm.
first few businesses that succeeded by using the iPhone App Store as like a proper platform, I would say were like Uber, Snapchat,
Hmm. Hmm.
Facebook Mobile. Like these are some of the first Instagram. Like these are some of the first apps that were built on that platform that truly utilized its potential, right?
Hmm.
So I think the same is going to happen with artificial intelligence. Like artificial intelligence is a new distribution channel. It's a new like raw material. There is incredibly innovative ways of like utilizing it to like create incredible things. Like who thought that you could use sand and silica to like make fucking computers? Like that's insane, right? So
Right.
the same kind of possibility is embedded in artificial intelligence. What it is going to be is like your innovation, is your creativity. Like if you're creative
Hmm.
enough and like you were able to do something interesting enough which solves a real world human problem, where you're not just using AI for the sake of using AI, but like you're solving a real world human problem, then you will win.
Hmm.